Hello and welcome back to another week on the Self-Ruled Podcast. I am your host, Hannah Holden. This week, I want to speak with you about how to find purpose in the plot twist. This episode is inspired by a lot of situations I've gone through in my life, but just some recent conversations that I've had with colleagues. I was spending some time with colleagues this week. I am working on a keynote, and thankfully I have a couple of people to practice with and kind of get on stage and test things out on. So that's been really fun. But in one of my keynotes, I talk about kind of the power of our perspective. I might not have used that exact language, but really that's what it is. There's so much power in our perspective. And I was talking about how a lot of times when we come up against challenges in life, we see the challenge as a problem. We see that obstacle, and all we can think about is how this is such a problem. But a lot of times in the moment, we don't realize that the quote unquote problem that's been planted on our path is actually there to serve a purpose for us. And when I was giving this section of my keynote, it was really interesting. Afterwards, one of my colleagues gave me the feedback that, okay, if someone is in a crisis situation, telling them to look for the lessons in their situation might not be realistic. They may be able to see that later on, but that doesn't mean that in the heat of the moment, they're able to have that perspective. And while I absolutely agree, I want to use this example as an opportunity to talk about how you can begin to condition yourself to have that in the moment awareness when you're in the thick of things. So I want to take you through kind of how I've transitioned or transformed over the years. So I know I've talked about this a little bit in some other episodes, but previous versions of me was more in I would say I lacked awareness. So I wasn't really awake to how some of the circumstances in my life were trying to groom me, trying to benefit me. I was more on the level of consciousness of when a problem came up in my life, to see it as a problem, maybe slip into some victim mentality, and really feel powerless to the circumstances in my life. I operated that way the first, 30 years of my life. And then I started to shift into that ability to look back and see the lessons in things. So, okay, I can look back at why that happened to me, and now I can unearth the lesson from that moment, or I can see how that obstacle was trying to redirect me somewhere else. So I think a lot of people get to this point where they get older, they get more wisdom, they can look back on their life experiences and be able to tell themselves that more positive or empowering narrative, or have more self-acceptance or acceptance of these situations. And because at the end of the day, we realize, hey, we're okay, we're alive, we made it. And maybe that happened to us for a reason. So I think that's kind of like the next level of consciousness, if you will. But I think there's an opportunity to take ourselves further with that, which is to start to develop of a mindset where we're able to do that in the moment. So it's not just, hey, I got laid off from my job, and then 3 years later, after grieving it and maybe being resentful, then we can see the gift in it. But when you can start to actually cultivate that in the moment, you are able to transcend these obstacles in your life so much faster. And I get it. I get it that sometimes things happen and our life goes from peaceful, things in order, to chaos. Maybe life happens and chaos can hit. And a lot of times we can be so triggered, and we can be so just caught off guard, and we can panic and we can be traumatized. And that's totally natural. I think that that's just part of the human experience. And we do need to be gentle on ourselves when those things happen. But if you can start to bring that awareness into the present moment of what is the purpose behind this plot twist, in the moment, you're going to move through it with more self-confidence and more of a positive mindset. And I get it that it's not always easy, because our knee-jerk reaction is going to be whatever it is, whatever we've been programmed and conditioned to our whole lives. But I want to share with you that you can recondition yourself, reprogram yourself so that you respond differently when problems come up, when obstacles happen, when life happens, that you can program yourself through practice and repetition to change your knee-jerk reaction. I know because I have done this. My knee-jerk reaction when things happen is not to immediately kind of melt down and panic in those situations. My knee-jerk reaction now is to ask myself more empowering questions about what is this trying to teach me? How might I be, how do I want to say this? How am I possibly being redirected here, right? How is this possibly trying to get me to open my eyes? So, I mean, there's a lot of questions you can ask yourselves, but instead of waiting for 6 months, 3 years, 5 years down the line to have that wisdom, you can bring that into the present moment by being present, being aware, and asking those questions that kind of take you out of the seat of being kind of the passive participant in your life and the victim in your life to more of an observer in that situation. So you step back, you kind of step out of the character. I think a lot of times don't get me wrong, I've been there many times, but I think a lot of times when life hits and we're really going through it, it's really easy to get caught up in the character. And what I mean by that is just playing the role, and we get flooded with the emotions and the stress and the anxiety. And I get it because I've been there and had full-blown kind of almost like panic, maybe not panic attacks, but like nervous breakdowns because of how stressful life has gotten. But we kind of overly identify with the character and the situation instead of being able to have that present awareness to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And this has happened to me a lot because I've gone through ups and downs in my life just as anyone else has. I think more of my ups and downs the last few years have been related to entrepreneurship and just how unpredictable it can be sometimes. Sometimes things are just moving along and everything's great. And then other times problems come up or challenges come up, or there's just the unpredictable nature of consulting. And sometimes when that hits, it is really stressful. But because I've encountered a lot of this in my life, it's forced me to develop a different mindset, because if I didn't develop a different mindset through challenging times, I wouldn't have made it. And so I believe that you can develop it too. You can develop more of this resilience mindset. What else do I want to say here? That was a lot in one breath. But yeah, you have your own version of this in your life. You may not be an entrepreneur. Maybe it's the fact that you're a mother or a father, or maybe it's work related, or whatever the situation is. We get hit with those challenges, or maybe we're living a life where we're just getting hit over and over again. Oh, I know where I wanted to come back to. I wanted to come back to the character thing, because we can get overly identified with the character and the situation and not realize our power in the situation. And another way I wanted to frame that was thinking about not just, oh, I'm playing a character, this bad thing happened to me, now I have to feel all the negative emotions about it. Sure, feel it, have your moment, because I have them too. But another way to think about this is, instead of identifying as the character and playing your role, how can you identify more as the author of your own story? And if you were the author of your own story, how would you adjust the narrative? How would you change the storyline to suit that character? How would you change the storyline to suit your life? And that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about bringing it to the present, because later on we can rewrite the narrative and be like, oh, I see exactly why that needed to happen, so that X, Y, and Z would happen, so I'd meet such and such, and then it's this whole butterfly effect thing, right? So we can do that usually after the fact. But if you become the author of your story in the moment and start to have that habit, then when things happen, you'll realize that you have a choice in different moments. You have a choice to kind of crumble, which sometimes I do, or sometimes you crumble, and then after you crumble, you take a second look, you zoom out, you get into author mode, and you start asking yourself, what is the story I want to create here? XYZ happened. My character has been rerouted. My character has encountered a plot twist. So how am I going to change the narrative for them so that they can continue to be successful? So yeah, I think that's it for this week. I just really wanted to talk about this because it is so easy. It is so easy to have the aha afterwards. Sometimes many years later, like I said, when everything just happened to turn out okay, then we're allowed, or we allow ourselves to have the positive narrative about something. But this is a superpower to be able to bring that positive mindset, a more powerful perspective into the present, because as you're doing that, you are course correcting. You are often going to be getting yourself out of certain sticky situations faster because of how you're able to tune in and tap into that mindset immediately. It is a superpower. It is a muscle. It is something you practice. It is not something you're going to be successful at all the time because we all have those obstacles that just catch us off guard. They break us down. They might be flooding us with all kinds of feelings, emotions. Our nervous system can get out of whack and all that happens. But it's also about how quickly you can flip back in to taking control of the situation by taking control of your thoughts and your story. And you may vacillate. It's almost like, I think about this like being in a storm, and the storm may kind of be coming and going, and you might be going through a crisis, and right now it's downpouring and you're not able to step outside of that thinking. But as soon as you see that little reprieve, the rain stops, there's a little break in the storm, that's an opportunity to tap in and regain control of that narrative. And by doing so, you're also going to be able to get more grounded and calm your nervous system down. It's a practice. It definitely takes work, and it can take years to be able to do this. But the benefit is that you will be able to strengthen not just your resilience, but strengthen your nervous system to be able to take on more in life. So if you have big goals or dreams for your life, those often come with bigger risks, playing bigger, stepping out, standing out, all of these things that will also, the higher you go, the higher of a possibility is to fall further, if that makes sense. So we're shooting a lot higher, so we're up a lot higher, and the drop is a lot further down. But the beautiful thing is as you build that capacity to handle those difficult situations and the inner strength to navigate those situations, you're that much tougher. You might fall, but you're a lot stronger. You're not going to break. So it really will help you build that strength to be able to take those bigger shots in life and not worry so much about what the fall could look like, because you've proven to yourself time and time again through high climbs and maybe long falls that you can do it, and you're building that inner self-belief and inner resilience, and that is something that has the power to change your life. All right, that's what I've got for you this week. I will talk to you next time.